Good evening, and this budget meeting will come to order. Leading our pledge tonight will be Chairman Hodge. Good evening, and we're all accounted for, and another evening to look at these numbers, and we'll all have a smile as we do it. So, Mr. Odom, take it away.
Thank you. We still do not have revenue. Mr. Sandvig and Ms. Williams and I discussed that some this morning. This is getting to be a little bit unusual. So I don't know whether there's some conversation at the state level, some sharing changes or percentages. I don't know what's happening, but it's a little bit unusual to go this far and not start getting some estimates. So don't know. I want to start tonight with one thing. The county publishes this book last year, and I really had thought y'all might have received one, which is it's the Rutherford County's budget and appropriation resolution. So I printed you the one page. It's kind of really interesting, maybe interesting to you. It's a two-sided. Basically there and taking a look at that. Kind of as a start tonight. Last year in July when they approved it, of course our budget was approved for the proposed tax rate, 1.3435 at $326,144,038. And that's your revenues and all that's listed. On the back side of this, here's the Budget and Finance Committee has adopted a property tax increase of 19.33 cents for General Purpose School Fund and Education Capital Projects Fund. The primary reason for the increase is to enable Rutherford County Board of Education to offer and provide competitive salaries and to meet technology requirements mandated by the state of Tennessee. So, what we want to say there basically going into this to improve our salary competitiveness and technology, some things like that, these are continuing funds, because if you raise the salary base, and that comes every year, we're not asking right now the county to kick in more unless we change something in the budget. But this is from last year's continuing. If you look down at the bottom, again, general purpose school and kind of the summary, we do not know what the proposal last year in July, their ending fund balance would be 5.31%. I hope it's better than that, but we just don't know at that point. But this was an estimate last July, so from a year ago, this is where we are now. Tonight, what we're going to do is look at, of course, our expenditure side, since we don't have the revenue yet, the expenditure side for our 16-17 budget. So let's start, if you will. We have an agenda for you, April the 20th. And we're going to begin tonight by general purpose school budget amendments. And of course, you're familiar with you do budget amendments. Typically between now and the end of May, we'll be doing amendments because you're estimating over a year out how much monies are coming in. And so it changes. So these are the first amendments that we'll look at tonight. So it's on pages 4 and 5. The first one, number 1, this is certified salaries and extended contract amendments. This amendment reallocates $244,510 in already budgeted certified pay and $39,027 for the related benefits for a total of $283,537. This amendment adjusts the budget to reflect the certified staff we have in place in the spring of 2016. The change in the assistant principal line, 72-410-139, is due to changes made at Smyrna Middle when another principal was named and covering for an illness of another school. Staffing changes at the alternative school caused the change in line item 71-150-116. The system also plans to continue paying staff who were in the 14-15 and flow through amounts they have been receiving. As these staff members retire, these payments will end. Extended contract was the thing that started in the 1980s, State funding, as people retire, that changes. And so we have some retire each year, some of that reduces as more people retire. So this amendment represents 0.15% of the total budget of $159,960,354. So here's the motion. Recommend motion to amend the 2015-16 general purpose school budget by $244,510 in already budgeted certified pay and $39,027 for related benefits for a total of $283,537 as presented. So the first one of this is the changes that was described. So again, we're not asking for more money. For people that's watching us on television, we're moving monies around in line items to meet the changes from all of these hundreds of lines that's in the main budget.
You've heard the recommendation. Mr. Estes?
Second.
Mr. Holliday? Further discussion?
We have the pages with some of the breakdown if you want to follow that, like you say on pages 4 and 5 of in the back of this document.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the second part of this one is insurance, which is on page 6 of your supplement there. This amendment reallocates $115,600 in already budgeted employee medical insurance. The amended amounts reflect the actual insurance elections of our staff for the 2016 medical insurance enrollment. So again, remember, our employees elect the plan that they will choose in basically the October time frame. It goes into effect January 1. This is very typical every year, depending how people change their plans. Most people we have an increasing number of people going to HR accounts now. We also had changes in the spouse last year. So these are just things that reallocate existing monies based upon those employee changes. So recommend motion to amend the 2015-16 general purpose school budget by medical insurance premium as presented. And that's the $115,600 change.
Heard the recommendation.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jordan and Ms. Moore. Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 2.
Item number 2 is Fund 143. This is a centralized school cafeteria. It's on page 7 of your supplement. This amendment increases net cafeteria fund revenue by $267,482 and has a net adjustment in expenditures of $267,482. The net change to fund balance is zero. We have seen an increase in food costs this year. Remember, all cafeteria funds have to be spent in the cafeteria funds. So typically in this fund, when you finish, you're going to have net changes. You just reallocate from a revenue side to an expenditure side. So the motion is to amend the 2015-2016 cafeteria budget fund revenue by $267,482 and to increase net expenditures by a corresponding $267,482 as presented.
The motion.
Move for approval.
Mr. Holliday and Mr. Young. Questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 3.
On page 2, which is number 3, Fund Item 189. This is a building program amendment. It's a cleanup amendment from prior construction projects. This building program amendment closes out most of the Eagleville Phase 1 budget, $664,427, and the odd remaining money in the Blackman Middle and Smyrna Primary projects, $413. The funds are being moved to 3 projects, $257,769 to the John Coleman Elementary project, $300,412 to the design funds for a 2-story middle school design for the next middle school after Rocky Fork, and $106,659 in design funds for the next high school. which is on our building program. 7/13 of Eagleville building funds have been shared with the Musselburgh City Schools. This amendment maintains the proper shared balances. So the cleanup amendment, which is in the yellow column, if you're looking on page 8, for each project reallocates already budgeted funds for these projects to the appropriate budget line items. No new funds. From Roy Waldron to the Roy Waldron addition, $608,026. To the John Coleman addition, $4,105,336. Oakland Middle Annex, $2,800. Rocky Fork Elementary School, $48,800. Recommend motion to amend $664,427, remaining in the Eagleville Phase 1 budget, and the remaining $413 in the Blackman Middle and Smyrna Primary projects to 3 projects, $257,769 for the John Coleman Elementary project, $300,412 for design funds for a 2-story middle school design for the next middle school after Rocky Fork School, and $106,669 in design funds for the next high school, and to amend a total of $4,764,962 in already budgeted funds to the individual line items as presented for the Roy Waldron addition, the John Coleman addition, Oakland Middle Annex, and Rocky Fork Elementary School.
Is that supposed to be old remaining money instead of odd?
I'm sure.
That is odd remaining money
Odd,
from leftover purchase orders.
I don't know that I've ever heard that phrase before, so.
And Mr. Clardy is here. Mr. Sandvik's here. If you have questions
Yeah, I
on
was just thinking,
what we're
odd,
doing.
odd remaining money, okay. Good, that's different. Okay, heard the recommendation? Mr. Young? Mr. Estes? Discussions, okay, Mr. Holliday?
The 257,000, et cetera, that's going to John Coleman Elementary, will that largely head toward furnishings and equipment? Of furnishings and equipment's needs and technology, do we feel like that this is generous, adequate? Help me understand how this matches up with their ideas and wishes. Okay. Well, for that, I say thank you, and I'm satisfied.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holliday. Further discussion?
Terrific to be under budget, isn't it? It's terrific, really.
And money that's appropriated for buildings, we return to buildings if
Don't
there's
have to ask
anything
for it
left
again.
over, so that's.
Well, the neat thing is he's made a habit out of it year in and year out. So that makes it nice too. So thank you, Mr. Clardy. You and your personnel just, you squeeze that penny until it screams, and we're grateful. Well, it just makes you and us good stewards of the public tax dollar, and we're grateful for you doing that, and the taxpayers are also. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 4.
Number 4, we begin looking kind of where we met tonight to start with our 16-17 budget. And I asked Mr. Sandvik to put together, based upon the conversations you've had for the last couple of meetings, what have we placed in some line items, because the numbers each time look slightly different based on what we've done on your conversation. So here's kind of where we are, and looking at that. We're not asking tonight that you necessarily draw vote to do some of these items individually, because they'll take independent action. If it's a supplement for a sport or something like that, before or after the study, whenever you seem to do it, what we're doing now, because we have to submit this Friday to the commission, is to make sure that we try to get things, whatever you have, what we have here, anything you add tonight, so that we get it included. Now, as things change, probably it's 2 weeks before we meet again, Ms. Michaels, is that right? Something like that? Week after next, is that what it is? By then, maybe the revenue piece And then I think we can maybe coalesce on some of these things of what we want to move forward now and what we might want to do. But anyway, here's your changes that represents your number changes. We've not received the April BEP estimate, and Ms. Nolan is still working on local tax projections. The expenditure side of the budget is in accordance with what we have been told about the district's 2016-17 BEP allocation and local funding. Again, some preliminary estimates is where we are based on conversations. The expenditures right now is $339,153,769 before any changes that you might choose to change tonight. Supplements, we did build in some supplements and decide whether you want to do, again, the study first or you want to change it. But we did build in funds that would allow the soccer, the track, the wrestling, and the volleyball. So if that's done, but if we don't, that can come out or whatever we choose to do. We missed adding before a social worker, which we had intended to add, so that social worker is there. E is really changing line items. These are special education positions. A teacher, a speech and language teacher, and 2 EAs are in the budget, are moved to cover new preschool classes at John Coleman Elementary. Again, we said something to you earlier on that we're mandated, starting at age 3 with speech and some other things to cover special needs children. That's a federal requirement, and we had just packed out. Some of these preschool classes have 2 classes per day, a morning and an afternoon. Some are all day, depending upon the disability and the time required. But again, we'd gotten to the point we just need to expand and have another one because of the number of students. That's a growth. Unemployment cut back to offset potential adult ed claims. Now, I need to kind of explain this one to you. It appears that this workforce essentials, remember I told you earlier that we would no longer directly be running the adult education, that it was being farmed out to some 501c3 or somebody would run 19 counties. I believe it's 19 counties, and we certainly don't want to run 19 counties adult ed. We've met with the people making application. It won't take us any more funds or anything to do, but we can retain a couple of employees. If they're going to use our building, we may be able to hold Joan Delisle and the secretary there. If they're going to use our building, there's over 600 Rutherford County people being served there. You're doing a benefit for Rutherford County is what you're doing here, even beyond your PK through 12. But all of the other people, all of the other teachers and that sort of thing will have to go under these new rules, have to go under somebody's 501c3. So all of their paychecks, everything that they goes to somebody else. It will no longer come to us to be even disbursed. So the only thing we're kind of doing is maintaining a little bit of the head control because it's using our building facilities and we want it to serve Rutherford County well. And these people know our county and know our people. But it means that all of these other part-time teachers and all could possibly draw unemployment because they're no longer working for us. A teacher, that's on a contract, they're off in the summer. This was decided many years ago, cannot draw unemployment because they're on a continuing contract. They start again in the fall. But in a situation where these people are leaving our teaching role and having to go to a totally different entity, that doesn't apply, even though they may get reemployed by Workforce Essentials. And Workforce Essentials says we would like to reemploy them if we get the grant. So all of this is a move just in case, right? Jeff, is that the best way to say it? May or may not be a cost to us in unemployment. And I do think the people will get their job back, but we have to build into the budget worst case scenarios sometimes. And that's what this is. Questions about that? Because that's a lot at one time for you.
Holiday.
Who's the boss of adult ed?
The adult ed in the state comes out of the Labor and Workforce Office.
Okay.
Most of your monies are good, I want to say most might, I think most is correct though, is federal funds that come from labor and workforce federal down to the state to administer. They have new leaders in the state that are administering this. They have decided no longer to issue contracts to individual school districts. We're talking Montgomery County, we're talking Wilson County, we're talking Rutherford County and many others. And some 501c3, somebody has to make a bid for it to run all of these counties under their umbrella. There's money's coming to them. I can tell you that Montgomery County, Wilson County, and if we keep our two people, Rutherford County, the large ones that have the large number of citizens that are, working on their GED and all, are trying to do what we do, to try to make sure we hold on for a year. Because here's the issue. They said that they were only going to do this for 1 year until they see how it works. We don't know that a year from now we're not sitting here and they're saying, please take us over again. Or we're going to go totally another way. But for the stability of Rutherford County and our citizens, and for those 600 and something people that are working on their high school equivalency diploma, we as a board think we ought to try to do something to stability on that side for those people till the state decides what they're going to do.
So the
That's my
the
thought.
ladder of authority, so there would be an individual
They
there.
said that the teachers and all basically answer to this other group if Workforce Essential gets the contract. And you can find them on the network. They do lots of programs in lots of counties in Middle. Workforce Essentials is the one that make an application. They contacted us. And they do this over the state of Tennessee, a lot of grants and things that they do, anything from drug training to, well, you can look at their things they do. It's a very large organization. But we would get to basically, with our person in charge, secretary, run the office here. What's our hours? How we handle a lot of this, that we handle this coming in. But the teachers must work for this 501c3 that gets the grant.
So is this a new venture for them? I mean,
It's new for Workforce Essentials to go into this adult education for the high school equivalency thing. They do many other education programs, but this is, my understanding, new for them to do this. We met with the people, very nice. True. Very small systems. Okay.
The way we would go in our adult ed. We had two options. We could take over, well, three options. We could take over that for 13 systems, which is not a feasible option. We could pay for everything ourselves, which is not a good option for the Rutherford County citizens. Or we could work with whatever entity that applied to this grant and got that grant. And I think President Sheffield and I sit down and work through this option, which is best for our young adults and some of our other adults that are working through this high-step program.
It does not affect the adult high school that we run. It really comes through education funding. So the people, some of you come to the adult high school graduation, they get a regular Tennessee high school diploma. Doesn't affect that. That's still under us. One person, one teacher over there. This affects the high school equivalency side, the old adult education side.
Does that still meet in the same building?
Yes,
Okay. So are they meeting in our facility?
they will be, yes.
Will we have any freedom or permission to change our relationship about that facility?
Yeah, and this is a one-year agreement.
Right.
Now, we've talked with Joan Delisle, and she says there's some rooms over there on one side. She may be able to turn as much as one side of it back over to education because we're running out of space. She said, I think with some of the changes and some of the things that we're seeing, that we can turn this back over to y'all for use for other things. And that's one, one of the things that Workforce Essentials ask us, would you rent buildings to us? And I said, we're not in the renting buildings out situation. We're needing space. We can't do that, but we're willing to try to help a little bit because it involves so many Rutherford County citizens to help a little bit to see that it goes on. They contacted TCAT, our people here, that do the, and the new one gonna be in Smyrna, and the TCAT said, we don't want to take that program over. They're using all of their space in training and all, so they did not jump on this either. So it was really, it's my understanding, I'm not sure anybody else has applied. I think.
In our knowledge, no one else has applied for this grant, so if they don't receive the grant, we won't have an adult ed at all, even this won't be the case. Because once again, it was lumped together from Montgomery County all the way through Rutherford County. Through Davidson County and up as well. So there's 13 school systems, or 13 counties in the systems within those counties that are lumped together, and it's mandated for it to be applied. This grant's mandated to be applied for that whole section of Tennessee. But Mr. Holliday, to answer your question, we still have 2 employees if this goes through, right, Mr. Sanjay, that will be working for us. And so we'll have that control and overwatch of that building through those 2 employees. It's a 1-year grant. And we still are not certain that they'll receive that grant, and to be honest with you, no one knows who's applied for the grant other than me.
Mr. David?
Well, just when we met with the workforce, the 2 ladies from Workforce Essentials, they stressed our staff will be in charge.
They did, and we've insisted part of that. You're gonna use our buildings, we're not.
They don't want to manage 13 of these. They want to have 13 separate entities manage that for them. They're just, I don't think anyone's capable of managing 13.
But they're not,
Thanks for moving that microphone over.
but they're not offering us at this time any portion of their grant funds.
They could not. That question has been asked.
Okay, because I'm kind of,
I'm where you are.
yeah.
How much of this are you gonna pay for people to head it up? They said there is no permission whatsoever to do that. Now they're gonna hire the teachers, the education side, but if we keep anybody that we keep to manage, they can't give us any funds to do. So it's kind of we've been doing this for years though.
Right.
We've been
This is
paying for
kind
a
of our
part-time teacher.
contribution back.
They'll pay for them.
We're actually using PK through 12 funds for the citizens of Rutherford County. You got some county commissioners that really love that it's not really GED anymore, it's high school equivalency. That's very much that, but this is for the citizens of Rutherford County. You as a Board of Education are going beyond really what you would have to do to help some of our adults. Because if our adults get a diploma, and the people that do not have a diploma in Rutherford County, then if all the statistics and studies show, it'll cost us less in the long run. They're less likely to be in crime or having to receive other services another way that you and I are going to pay for. So pay me now or pay me later.
Right, yeah.
A little bit.
Okay.
So that's that F item. We put some money in there for unemployment in case the teachers that no longer work for us can or elect to do unemployment. That's the bottom line. The discussion has been about a possible bookkeepers, the second bookkeeper for the high school. I think I told you the high school principals have a regular meeting Tuesday night. Tuesday morning, we're going to meet with them, discuss it some. Some of you have proposed that we go back and add if we bring in all boosters, all of those accounts into the schools, it's just not possible for the current bookkeepers on their 225-day contract to handle it. I mean, it's just too much. Now, I do not recommend that we hire another 225-day person. School is 180 days, and you have, of course, days on each side of in-service. Teachers work a 200-day contract, basically. So if we elect to add these positions, my suggestion is that we add the 200-day rather than another one equivalent. So you're kind of going to have one lead bookkeeper and the other one. But any combination you choose to do there, at one time, we talked about letting a bookkeeper shared between two high schools. I really don't recommend that. They're competitive. They're not going to want to share a bookkeeper about where your money is and how much your football program's got in mind. But the other side of it, they might not be there the day you need the check for the referees that night, and a lot of little things there. So we could go halftime, 200-day, or whatever you decide to do, but we did put in some monies to allow us to do up to this much. You understand what I'm saying? So we, again, are trying to deal with contingencies, not knowing revenues yet. iSynergy imaging system included for 8 high schools. Mr. Young, you don't recognize this. This was your recommendation a year ago. How about the high schools that we've got all of those files of people who have graduated over the years, that we're maintaining, buying filing cabinets, maintaining hundreds, thousands of student records to do. And we said last year that Ms. Barnes was converting, to all of the HR to this system. We bid out thing, and MTR up here received it, which is close. They've done the training. It's working very well for her. So her documentation is now paperless, basically. We're going to do the same thing with special education with Ms. Bell and them. There's a massive amount of paper that goes with the special education program. So we're going to recommend that we do this, but we're also recommending that we go ahead with our 8 large high schools, basically, and start this imaging system. I don't know how long it's going to take them to catch up, but, Oakland, Riverdale, 1972. So there's a lot of files there. But we're in a modern world. We need to now be able to scan, find it, produce copies for parents and public. I can't tell you how many times when I was in attendance that we had to go look up records because somebody's house burned and they could no longer prove they got a high school diploma or some other document they wanted. So we do all of those things that most people do not know about sometimes, even though they can get a duplicate diploma from the state. So questions about iSynergy might be better directed to Ms. Barnes since she has the most experience with it.
And in my office, we have an imaging system also, and there are redundant centers all over the nation where if one went down, say if it was in Atlanta, there might be something in Denver, or there could be something in Seattle or Boston. I'm assuming that we have that same situation here, that there's redundant locations to protect.
Yes, that's correct, and everything is housed on their servers, protected within their system,
But I mean, is there more than one site?
more than one site, correct.
Okay.
A literal thing, and this would affect you. You remember when the old rock school in Smyrna burned, there were gobs of old Smyrna records in that basement.
Yes, sir.
So, we need to go electronic with records. They're called permanent records. Permanent speaks for itself, that a person can come back later.
Well, the neat thing is that if they're classified correctly or coded correctly, you can find a student from 50 years ago easily, and it just makes sense to have, just not only to be able to do away with all this paper, but to have access to it whenever the need arises.
Mr. Odom, do you feel like that if I'm reading this correctly, this puts some amount of funds for all 8 high schools? Is this a program that would be correctly implemented at one high school at a time over 8 years, or is it the right thing to?
We're graduating in most of our high schools 400-500 or so per year.
Right.
I don't know how long it's gonna take them to get the backlog done. We actually did a little bit of Smyrna with a totally different system, probably 10, 12 years ago. And it went to the courthouse server, really, really slow. The technology was not there at the time. It was more akin to the old photocopy image, that you had. My recommendation would be what are they per unit in this?
Well,
When you put this in
it
town, what was
is about, I've got a smaller screen here, harder to read.
That's the question.
It would be about $10,500 per school, and $1,440 of that is the recurring annual charge.
What you pay for them.
Once you pay for it. We went ahead and I issued a requisition for Riverdale, so we'll have some similarity in documents. So as we get with them, the types of documents, and that's the front-end work we have to do. Well, once we have it in place for one high school, it should be pretty easy to just expand it to the others. Went ahead, there was money in that function to do the Riverdale, and have some time, some front-end time to get it started.
Again, MTR is right here,
Yeah.
so the schools are just right on top of each other. So what types of additional training, what do we need to do? Not everything in one of those records is permanent. But Ms. McLeod maintains that for us, communicates to principals what is. Your academic typically is, your medical stuff that you submit and things like that is permanent record. But
So at Oakland and Riverdale, they opened in 72. So are student records
at Oakland and Riverdale,
at Oakland? Wow. Where do they put them all?
we keep buying filing cabinets
Wow.
and stacking them on top of
Well,
filing cabinets.
when we do this, we may open up a couple classrooms.
And this item
huge.
was already in the budget. I forgot to mention it at our earlier meeting.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Does the contract take care of destruction of records afterwards, or?
We have a separate contract for,
We have a shred account. And when
We'll
we
be
were going
okay
through our,
Under that contract,
I'm sorry,
we'll be okay with the additional?
we think so. If not, we'll amend some later because that's, but the nice thing about this, once you get past it,
right,
you stop generating these
that's correct.
paper things, you get to the place.
All right.
Okay.
Letter I.
All right, letter I is, I'll let Mr. Sandvig, because you requested last time some SRO summaries. So, I got an extra one if you need it.
Oh, gotcha.
Everybody got 'em. You requested this last time, so he's done some of the summary, the charges for SROs. So, Mr. Sandvig, would you go over that, please, sir?
The first bullet covers minimum number of hours, or for a high school football or basketball game, 3 hours for a middle school game, 2 for a JV game, if needed. Now, there was a proposal that was discussed, some changes. I kind of went by the 2010, because that's more the way we have been doing it.
SRO, the sheriff's department asked for more people. Like schools ask for more people to help with bookkeeping, like principals need more teachers for the classroom, but they ask us to increase this. And I can tell you when we have an if you're on a football field and Oakland Riverdale are playing, or Smyrna and Laverne are playing each other, or maybe now even Blackman and Riverdale and something like that, the schools tend to staff at a higher rate. So we kind of put out some minimum things to do that. So that's kind of what this is from.
But as far, question 2, and Ms. Barnes put the questions together based on your discussion. 6 officer minimum for high school football, 3 for high school basketball, 2 officer minimum for freshman and middle school games, and JV if needed. The cost paid per hour or per event. It tends to be per event. High school football, 85, middle school football, 70. There's some of the other stranger rates, but those are the main two below that. Because most of the SROs, nearly all of them are hourly employees, this kind of goes down into the next bullet. They code these hours differently on their timesheet. The courthouse bills us at the central office for the total cost. Flat pay if no overtime is involved. They add on for Social Security, Medicare, and retirement. But when we went to this back in 2010, we set the flat dollar reimbursement rates for the school to use. And this is the source of the $80,000 that is in this proposed budget for next year. The difference between what we are charged by the county for these hours and what the schools reimburse.
So how does comp time?
Well, and then comp time they've kind of moved away from on this.
Okay.
That has been a bit of a hot issue between the sheriff's office and the commission at times over the years.
They put some of them back on patrol for their comp time.
Yeah,
Lately is what I'm hearing,
yeah,
which, again, we don't control that.
right.
Mr. Hodgkin, Mr. Hodgkin.
Just to make sure I got this right, I think I asked you before. This cost is paid by the school system, not the school.
The costs in bullet 3 are paid by the school. The school pays that to us here at the central office, but out of central office funds initially, we pay the actual cost. The courthouse bills us twice a year.
Okay, that's the question I asked last meeting.
Right.
Because that's complaints I get from these principals. We have to have all these officers here, and they're paying for it. You corrected me last time and told me that we're paying for it out here.
We wind up in our net budget with the difference between what they are actually paid through payroll and what the schools have paid. If Ms. Egley sent me her spreadsheet, the high schools for the first half of the year had $7,000 to $10,000 worth of charges they had paid per high school. The middle schools had much smaller amounts. We got a bill in January for the first half of the year, the actual charges. So we didn't, if the charges go over, we don't bill the school for that difference. We eat that difference.
How much difference you talking about?
This, for next year's budget, based on what we had in January, $80,000 in total.
Is overage?
Is overage, the difference between what they are paid and what the schools are charged.
My understanding is the sheriff's department also bills different based on their rank. Some of the people down there are salaried.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of handles that, but if you're a sergeant or a corporal or something, when they actually bill it back, it's based on their individual rates.
Their hourly pay.
So when we put a figure out here, it could be more or less, if the lieutenants are there or something like that, it could be a little higher.
I guess what disturbs me looking at these figures here, you're basically telling me per officer it's $85 an hour.
No, that is
Night.
per event.
For the 4-hour
per
minimum
hour.
at the top.
Wait. 6 hour minimum.
If we're getting billed $85 an hour, something wrong.
I think the 80, look at
85
one.
is for the 4 hours for a high school event for that officer.
Okay, so the school's actually getting charged whatever it is, $22 or whatever per hour.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Let me see if I've got the detail on that January billing. I don't remember if I got that.
What it really boils down to, like for each one, if you look at one up there, 4 hours for each high school, say, football game. What changes some is who, and when we say in the next one that there are 6 officers there, the change will be when they actually bill it out is that rank of that personnel too.
I guess I'm a little, I think we ought to pay a fair price, and it should be no matter who's working it. And I don't think we should be getting into what title you have as far as what you get paid. I think we have a job here to offer, and if it's $85, it's $85. It's not-
And that is what the schools pay. We just charge
It may
them.
be cheaper to contract this out through somebody else than to go through our sheriff's department, is what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Right?
County do it.
I guess your advantage is when your SROs and people are there, they know the kid by name.
I mean, it's a good thing, but I just don't understand why it has to be so complicated on the pay scale. And I definitely want to make sure that we're not paying them, and then they're earning comp time too.
In bullet 4, the courthouse pays them based on the hours they code to the school functions on their timesheet. So there should not be any double dipping between comp and overtime. But that is the responsibility between the sheriff's department and the courthouse payroll department.
Yeah.
That should be all right. The main comp time I'm still aware of would be like for some of the elementary school SROs who work with archery or something like that. I think we're still running into some comp time for stuff like that, but I don't know that we are at other. We just see the side of when there's a charge to us.
How do you denote $85 per person if it's going in if it's overtime?
And that's what we did, the flat charge to the school. So the school doesn't have to worry if it's overtime, if it's regular time.
So you're making, the central office is making up the difference?
We're making up the difference.
When
yes.
there's a rank
I'm sorry
issue,
if I didn't explain that well last time.
a rank issue or overtime?
Yeah, yeah. And then if sometimes you will have an event, and that's in 3F. If something goes more than 5 hours at the high school level, then we are charging $17 for the additional hours to the school, but we pay the difference. This amount has crept up on us, and it's up to $80,000.
Holiday?
Am I reading it correctly that, what is 3C?
3C would be just for a freshman game, based on length of the games. You would have 2, assuming you'd have a boys and a girls game for basketball. So $80 for the night, $40 per game. I did some copying out of from the files that Ms. McLeod sent me from when this was put into place.
Yeah, C, didn't you?
Yeah, but I can extrapolate.
Yeah.
If it's a 2-hour event, no, it doesn't have anything to do with the length of the event. Well, yeah, if it's a 2-hour event, it's $42.50 an hour and $85 for the night?
Yeah, $42.50 for say for the boys' game, $42.50 for the girls' game.
It's 85 for the entire,
85 for both games together.
You just need to take per hour out.
Okay.
Did you say per hour?
Okay.
No,
Yeah, that shouldn't be, if it's per hour.
I just didn't understand the
Yeah,
relationship
that's
between
the title.
$42.50 and $85.
Right.
Yeah, it's per hour should go out, you're right. That's
It should be per event.
Is this number of officers that are required the same as it was last year?
These are from the original 2010 agreement worked out with the sheriff's department. Yes, sir.
We met with them again, we met with the principals and then the SROs. And again, SROs are asking, do we have extra people if it's one of those overflow crowd nights or something like that? And so we met with the principals. Their agreements basically was, if it's an overflow night, we want extra people ourselves. Do not necessarily mandate, because one of the agreements, they want to say if it's anywhere in county, we want X number of officers there. Well, when Laverne comes to Oakland, it's not going to necessarily be a large crowd. So we really turn more of it back over to the principals and their safety. They're the ones on site. So basically, do you need extra officers tonight, or will the minimum take care of it? It's just almost impossible to make a rule to say if it's inter-county, that you gotta have all these extra ones there, because you don't need it sometimes.
Understand? And basketball revenue in most schools is down.
Yeah, they spoke to that very much.
In fact, I checked with Blackman in Oakland, and of course, you would think Blackman would have plenty. They were down 28% this year. And Oakland was down 21% revenue for basketball.
It's getting tough. This is difficult for us, because we don't control both sides of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I got one more quick, in reference to this right here on the basketball, for example, as far as district tournaments go, who sets that requirement? Officers.
District tournaments. I think that high schools treat it like a game, have the number of officers for a district tournament.
But
You know, Ms. McLeod, you meet with them too,
what, if they need more than 3, they have to request it for a regional tournament or district tournament. I guess where I'm getting at is down here at the district tournament down in Laverne. You know, I'm sitting here talking to them down there. Why do we have to have all these officers just sitting up here? So I don't know if they requested them or.
Did TSSAA refund any of that to them for a district or a regional tournament? They should. Part of the ticket.
Well, I'm just concerned about it. I mean, as you look at some of these, just like use football, for example, before they even get started. You know, they got, what, almost over $500 from the get-go.
Will you contact and ask somebody to see, Ms. McLeod, to see if they, for a playoff game or district or regional, are they following this? I mean, do you know already, or?
I think what happens is the SRO at the school where the tournament will be held, and the principal get together and discuss what kind of crowd they think they're going to have. They look at previous years, previous crowds, and they decide based on their collaboration how many they think they will need for that tournament. Now, I know that's the way it's been done in the past, so I'll certainly call and have a conversation with them to see if that's still the case.
That is what the 2010 document outlined.
Mr. Ash could tell us, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. Sounds right.
Mr. Sandvik, you said that there's a reconciliation twice a year from the courthouse. Walk us through what that reconciliation looks like and the documentation that they send over. Is it a bill that says you owe us $80,000?
It is itemized by person with hours.
And location and event?
I don't have a copy of it with me on my PC, and Ms. Egley is out of town.
That's fine.
I think it is itemized by school, but I am not certain.
Okay.
I know that it is itemized. We pay the SROs at the alternative school and Holloway. Those are itemized by school. So I think all of them.
We pay the SROs?
At the time, it was felt that the grant, there was still some grant money being used, and it was felt that at our alternative schools in Holloway, it really didn't fit the grant for the SROs, which has gone away. So those have stayed with us. We used to reimburse for half of all of the, we reimbursed for half of those SROs, I'm sorry. We used to, I think that's it. We used to, and we may reimburse for all, we may reimburse the full charge on them now. I'm drawing a blank. But we used to reimburse for half of all.
Ms. Williams knows, I think, your answer.
Full charge on the alternatives, okay. We used to reimburse for half, And one year, because of the sharing issue between city and county schools and the numbers worked that year, they took those back into the sheriff's department, took the 4 or 5 cents, whatever it was at that point, from us. It was an even swap, and then they got unshared money to put in the sheriff's department. It helped balance that year's budget.
I tell you what, this is a complicated situation. Mr. Sandvik, if you understand this, and if everybody's being paid the proper amount, you've got job security for the next 100 years. Because I certainly don't understand.
Mrs. Jolly at the courthouse.
Okay. If Blackman plays Riverdale, and pretty good rivalry there, and they're both pretty good, and so I would assume that Dr. Justice and Mr. Nolan would get together, perhaps by phone at least, and decide if they needed extra security. But if they don't, they have 6 officers. That's required. SRO is required. 2 of those officers, almost for certain, can't speak for them, but I do know them. 2 of those officers, if the game's at Riverdale, the 2 Blackman SROs are going to be at that game. How do we handle that? If they're on the job, you see what I'm saying?
If they are on the job, they should be part of the 6 SRO contingent, I would say.
Okay.
My answer.
Well, that's a good answer. I'm not sure that I understand that. Somebody's dying to say something down here. I can hear them.
Well, Mrs. Egley has never expressed any concerns to me that we were being billed above and beyond. And Jeanette is very detail-oriented.
Okay.
Most, school is in, the school day is 7 hours. Most of your SROs are there at least 30 minutes or more ahead and after. So most of your high school people, I think you'll find are 40-hour weeks, and they're not building any comp time in those. I don't see how they could hardly. And where, then again, when school is out and they have the remainder of the year, that's where some of them are telling me that they're being reassigned to do patrol duties and stuff for their June time. They also have vacations and stuff like that, like any other employee, and the sheriff's department works that out for them. But it's not. It would be a little more difficult to build comp time now if they work close to 8 hours a day for the school year part, because we have a 7-hour day. That's just the bottom line.
From a county standpoint, I just like to see us simplified. I mean, and there's $80,000 that we're paying out in overages here. That could pay for a salary, another position here that we might need. So I just think we need to throw out there what we're willing to pay and negotiate.
I missed the end of that, Mr. Egley.
I think we need to put out there what we're willing to pay as a school system and see if we can't negotiate here a little bit, simplify.
One of the issues that we did face, and this kind of led to this whole situation, is we are treated as, for wage and hour purposes, we are a subdivision of the county government. So if one of our hourly employees works elsewhere in the county, you have put the hours from both jobs together in evaluating overtime. So where the SROs were working a shift that did not include overtime, unless there was a problem, because then in the old days, our schools were paying them for some of this time. It was a wage and hour conflict because we are controlled by the county. So we don't have latitude on whether or not it's overtime if we use the SROs.
So we can't hire them by the game and say, we're gonna pay you $85 a game, and that's.
We can't hire the SROs and do that. No, that's what we used to do. Long ago.
Mr. Holliday, did you?
Yeah, I hate to harp on the details, but $17 per hour is added for events that go longer than 2 to 3 or 4 hours minimums, and this is what the high school pays, or the school, if it happens to be a middle school or something of that nature. That would indicate then that, because we don't know how long the event took place until we get this $80,000 reconciliation. So when the $80,000 reconciliation comes in, do we charge back?
We know, we should be able to tell by the, the school sends the money, the $85 an hour per shift to us. So if they were to send us $102, we could plan, okay, that one went 6 hours. So that's kind of our control point. The school knows who they had, how long they had them. They send us the school's money, and then the county will bill us later on.
Okay. And then the 80,000, that was one reconciliation, right?
That is the cumulative amount we are looking at.
For the year.
For the year.
So 40,000 per reconciliation. You said reconciliation comes twice a year, approximately.
Well, you have more in the fall.
For football, okay, yeah, all right.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll rest for now.
I'll just reiterate so that it's on the record, we don't begrudge the SROs what they are providing. We just have a duty to understand and try and keep control of what this is. So our SROs and the security that they provide, our partnership with the sheriff's office is highly valued by this board. And our questions about this are solely based on our responsibility to understand and have proper controls of the taxpayer dollars. And so I say that for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday.
Would it be a bad idea? I wouldn't think so, to have the sheriff's department, that they have a gentleman out there that runs the SRO program. Would it be a bad idea to have him address us one night and open it up for questions at that time? Is that?
You have the assistant here almost every,
Yes, we do.
his number 2 man's here almost, it works for, here at us. They bill us for this too, right? Yes. How much do they bill us for this, and do you know?
Probably comparable rate.
Comes in that other too, though.
I guess it depends on how chatty we are.
Well, I'm sorry. To kind of just add a little bit to what Mr. Hodge said a minute ago, and just for general knowledge, if you play a football game, a home football game, and you start out $500 and some odd dollars in the hole right away, you can't get out of it. You've also got ticket takers and 6 or 7 high school football officials who are, despite what they would say, well paid. Okay, so you've got a pretty good bill before you ever kick the ball off.
Okay, we're back now to, that was the introduction to number 4, with the changes on the sheet. So we're now back to your actual budget sheets. And changes on these actual budget sheets were based upon items A through I there, is what we're saying. So I guess it's up to you, Mr. Chairman, but again, the board members, any of these particular line items, we went over them before, but any other discussion on the individual line item?
I want to comment on C, if I could, and I'm not sure how we want to word this, or if we want to make any change at all. But I thought it was our general understanding that the supplement on girls and boys soccer, track, wrestling, and volleyball would be 4%, not up to 4%. Is it too soon to?
It's already 8.
Right.
And the discussion y'all had was possibly go up by 4.
And one
Percentage
or two people said, do we want to do this in 2 years or all in 1 year?
Yeah.
So what we've done, at some point, you as a board will have to vote again on the supplement sheet. Remember that the supplements, Ms. Barnes, because it was under the REA, had to negotiate all of the supplements. And when we went to collective or to collaborative conferencing, all of that fell back on you as a board. So you're really now back in charge of supplements. So at some point, whenever you're ready, maybe at the next meeting, if you wanted to us to bring it and then add any or wait or whatever you want to do.
But the dollars are there now.
We put the dollars so it would be
to
there
increase.
at the time you made your decision. You can always go down on it.
Okay, I wasn't arguing, I was just questioning the words up to, or the word you just said a minute ago, possibly 4%. I thought we had sort of decided on 4%.
Somebody basically said, maybe do we want to do it 2 years?
Okay, and it definitely, I think, should say the high school, because all these sports are in middle school as well. And as I understand it now, the board can absolutely correct me immediately if you want to. I think we were discussing those 5 positions in high school supplements.
And that is where I put it.
Okay.
I don't remember discussing 5. Was there discussion about volleyball?
I got up to discuss that with Ms. Barnes at that meeting.
It's a-
Title IX considerations. We have boys and girls soccer, boys and girls are in track. Wrestling tends to be a boys' sport. So in order to stay balanced for Title IX purposes, volleyball had the same percentage supplement as these other sports. That we need to include volleyball to cover ourselves on Title IX issues, which is a girls' sport.
I think that revelation is evidence of what the board needs to consider here, that increasing these items to 12% means that we are setting an expectation of 12% when or if we may come back and look at the full supplement schedule in a comprehensive analysis, taking into account archery or girls wrestling, which does exist in our county. I believe it may be, but it exists, because when the wrestling coaches came calling to this board member, he said, hey, by the way, I've got girls wrestling, and I'm responsible for that as well, so I need to have...
There's not a girls' wrestling team.
Be that as it may.
There is a volleyball team.
Right. I'm just saying that we're increasing to 12%. We're setting a precedent, an expectation of 12% in a number of different areas. And if there's a finite amount of resources for supplements, we're going to have a hard time going back and rebalancing or altering anything if we do a comprehensive analysis. We're answering some areas here that are certainly worthy, or we're discussing answering those areas. I'm one board member who says that a comprehensive analysis of the entire supplement schedule is really, really needed. It may not be appropriate right now, but I think it's really needed. And for us to be making adjustments that we say, oh, and we have to increase somebody else here just to keep Title IX happy, I think it lends more evidence to comprehensive analysis.
Mr. Estes? Did you?
I got a question about something else.
Oh, okay. Chairman Hodge?
You know, I recently brought this up. I think Mr. Odom and I had conversations on this, going back probably 5 years ago when Mr. Gill was here. Ms. Barnes knows wasn't able to do a whole lot at that time, or we didn't do a whole lot at that time. And I've always, my view on the whole thing, because a lot of these sports I don't know anything about. Just like Mr. Jordan mentioned, the track. I don't know the first thing about track, so, I have to depend on somebody else to tell me that, but, I recently looked at the soccer deal back several years ago and compared it basically to the softball and baseball. Dealing with the same amount of kids, schedule's about the same, and you're talking about 15%, if I'm not mistaken, for those head coaches. And when we got into looking at this thing, we come up to 12%, correct? So I'm good working with the 12%, even though I may disagree it ought to be up at 15 with the rest of them. Now, as far as other sports, like I said, I have to depend on some of the other board members that know more about it than I do, but,
You're correct on that, Mr. Hodge.
I mean, it's, so from my perspective, I'll speak for, like I said, the soccer boys and girls. I'm more inclined to go ahead and move forward with that one now. The other ones, I'm just telling you where I stand on it. And, if studying needs to be done, let it be done, but, I think we've sat on soccer long enough. That's my perspective.
And like Mr. Odom said, probably here, 2 weeks, we'll come back and dissect a little more and actually entertain votes to either move along or to correct or change, whatever's the desire of the board.
Where did we add in Mr. Evans and Ms. McLeod's help?
That's on,
Page 16 and 31.
we didn't list that as an item, but it's in there.
Fifth line down, fourth line down, numbers 189. Page 16 and 31. And we just put together the changes that we passed in our last.
16. Which line number?
189.
Okay.
2.0 right now.
We go with one person for each one? Okay. Sounds good to me.
Again, tonight, we didn't, unless you choose to, and you can do anything you want to as a board, we weren't saying you had to make up your mind, but you may want to talk to each other and decide. But probably the next meeting, we probably do need to coalesce on what we're going to do about a lot of these line items. But our goal tonight was to get it's almost a worst-case scenario expenditure to send to the commission so that we can then work through the details, because if revenue comes back less, there's going to be several things changed. That's just what you run into.
Yeah, this is basically tentative for us, I guess, almost.
It is. This is what we're going to basically say, that this is where we are tonight, if you want to know the truth. I mean, that
But
basically.
without the revenue numbers, it just really makes it difficult to know what literally we can afford.
Here's the motion, and recommend a motion to approve the initial 2016-17 general purpose school budget as presented, and to go forward and forward it to the county finance department per the private act of Rutherford County. So what we're saying to them, this is our initial. I mean, we can tell them, and they know too, we do not have the revenue side. And will there be other requirements or changes that surprise us? Possibly. But it gives them a figure of potential expenditure. Still, any other questions on this?
We have a recommendation.
So move.
Thank you, Mr.
We
Jordan.
got to vote.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Further discussion?
we want to add tentative in there? Or is that,
I think initial is what they're, with the initial that they.
If you want that, we'll do that.
Would you rather?
I don't have a problem adding
prefer
that to
that
mine.
term?
Initial tentative, that's fine. If we put that in there, initial tentative.
That's okay with the board?
And again,
Thank you,
some of
Mr.
these
Young.
things may change. You may change people, positions, or things, but again, we're in a difficult situation not having the revenue piece.
Initial tentative budget.
Our first tentative
Yeah,
budget.
first attempt?
First attempt, that's right. Further discussion? Going once? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Number 5.
Number 5 is Fund 143, the centralized school cafeterias, and that's on your 16-17 budget. Remember, that one's handled differently. It's on page 9, if you're interested in that. The initial 2016 centralized cafeteria fund budget has $17,937,000 in revenues, $18,914,554 in expenditures, and uses $977,554 from fund balance. This is in line with the 2015-16 budget. In this fund or unassigned balances is not to exceed 3 months of projected expenditures. So if we're fortunate to not have a lot of equipment breakdowns, more students eat, and you take in more money, you can't spend it anywhere else or use it anywhere else, then you adjust the other way. This one has to go both ways on this federal lunch fund. So again, the recommended motion to approve the initial 16-17 centralized budget funds with $17,937,000 and revenues of $18,914,554 in expenditures, and to forward it to the county finance department per the private action of Rutherford County.
The recommendation,
So move.
Mr. Young and Mr. Estes. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 6.
Number 6 is new, and we've discussed this really since the last budget meeting, so this is kind of new for you tonight to look at too. This is the Fund 177 capital projects. And what happened this year, of course, as we took a look at this, we had more of our air conditioning systems, the chillers went out, some additional trouble with roofs and all. So here's what we're saying. This budget is funded by 5 unshared cents of property tax, $3,253,685, and based on the current estimate of a penny, that'll obviously change for next year some too. The 2016-17 projects from Mr. Carty total $3,647,300. And if you look at page 10 or 11 on this, that kind of begins to tell you what items we're talking about. We do this annually for our capital projects. We have a second list of projects on page 12 as we look at that. And so depending on our BEP estimate, we may be able to ask the county commission to temporarily move a penny or so of property tax allocated to the schools to this fund to help us catch up on backlog projects. Here's what we're saying. If ending fund balance comes in better, if the state comes in with more money than we project, if sales tax comes in a lot more than what we had, if extra monies come in, please don't rush to take a penny away from us. Let us spend it on our backlog capital projects.
Right.
So that we don't find ourselves behind. So in simplest terms, that's what we're saying tonight, that per this works out, that we could do that, and this is how we would spend it if you let us keep it. That's what we're saying. If we could put another penny in there, which would basically go from that 5 to 6 cents, is basically what we're saying, to get these projects done. So, and again, Mr. Carter's here to discuss it, if you'd like to, but the motion is to approve the initial 2016-17 capital projects fund budget in the amount of $3,647,300 to forward that to the county finance department per the private acts of Rutherford County. So again, y'all may want to question that or look at it a little bit more, but that's our thinking.
Pleasure of the board, discussion, or go ahead
Page
and
12, basically.
get the motion and second and then discuss.
So let's go ahead and do the motion.
Okay.
Make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Second.
Mr. Estes? Okay. Further discussion. Mr. Holliday?
Mr. Odom, what would you think, or Mr. Clardy, of removing where it says that depending on our BEP estimate, we may be able to ask the county commission to move a penny as opposed to temporarily move a penny? We've had conversation in the past about the 5-cent allocation is based on many years ago, 10, 12 years ago, of the amount of square footage that we had at that time. And we have, by magnitudes, more square footage now that we are continuing to maintain and work on. I think this is an opportunity to once again say that our maintenance does not somehow diminish because our square footage increases.
I think what we're saying here, based again upon the total number of pennies where they added the 19.3 last year, what if 1,800 kids come this year instead of 1,200? So a little bit uncomfortable to say, I'm more comfortable saying temporary now because if this works and everything else, you leave the other monies with us, you know, don't try to take some away, it can become permanent. First priority, even over buildings, is educating the students.
Understood.
That's my thought.
I'll yield then.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. Anybody else? Mr. Jordan?
Well, I just, it says 5 unshared cents here, but isn't it really like 4.5? Now?
That was fixed last year.
It was.
Yes, sir.
Because I know at one point we were told to forget it.
Yeah.
Because I was a part of the body that told you to forget it.
Well,
I didn't like that, but
that's when we got the AG's opinion saying
okay, you're right.
that we did not have to share those funds. So we actually got more than our old 5 cents.
Okay.
But the other thing that Mr. Odom and I have discussed that we have to keep in the back of our mind too, and you, Mr. Jordan, may remember that side, there, with opening another middle school for the next year out.
That's correct. You're exactly right.
It's sometimes hard to get people to remember that we have higher operating costs. So we'll have to, we need
the
some
mayor's
latitude.
worry was the initial opening when we build a new building. Again, if the state comes through, it could be a one-time or a funding or something like that. If we're allowed to retain that, then you might be able to open that new school without a property tax increase. It would come out in your ending fund balance, but then would be rolled to help us with the startup cost. So you have to look at it in long term.
Anybody else?
I think this is a good move. I mean, we've had a bare bones budget the last few years, and anytime we get an opportunity to go back and catch up on some things, we need to do that. Because we don't want to neglect our schools, so.
And we need to continue to remind the commission that, yes, they did give us $3 million, and yes, we did not do the state testing, but yes, we had fallen way behind in technology, and even that $3 million did not get us over that hump. We're still lagging in some aspect, so, you know.
For 8,000 students, the city appropriated $5 million.
5 million, yeah,
For 42,600 students,
got 3.
we put $3 million in
Yeah.
technology.
We're better shoppers.
Okay. We also get donations, which is going to come up tomorrow night from people like State Farm.
So, But yeah, I do not want, we do not want the county commission to misunderstand that how desperately we needed that 3 million, testing or not. We desperately needed it, so. Okay. We have a motion and a second, and we've had discussion. Anything else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's the last thing that I have. Anything else you want to discuss in dealing with that? But I would say at our next meeting, we got to come back with some things. I can make recommended motions, and y'all can chop at it, change it. If that works better for you than you having to make a motion here on the floor, whichever way you choose for us to do that, be glad to do it. You know, it's just because we got several hanging things here because we don't know the revenue piece, but it's ever how you would prefer me to proceed.
If that becomes known, would you get that to us as quickly as
Yes.
possible?
Yes.
Because
It'll probably be the news.
Okay, well, yeah, some of the, some board members may hinge their desires based on those dollars too, so. But board members, again, you'll be able to make your own motion, or you can work through the director of schools for that motion too, so.
I understand the state of Tennessee can send us whatever they want to send us, just whenever they so choose, and we, of course, have to react immediately to their requests. I understand that, but what can are we looking at, when are we going to, I don't see how we can do much more until we have some estimates. Do we have any idea?
1 year, we did not get the estimate until after the budget.
Now I really feel good. I really feel good about that.
That was a memorable year, yes.
Well, wasn't that the year that the legislature stayed in session
Yes.
longer? That's been,
Yeah.
that was a big issue. They wouldn't approve a budget themselves is what happened. And this legislature has approved a budget. So there's some number out there somewhere.
Is this legislature still in session? Oh,
It is.
Mr. Wilson's shaking his head yes, so it was kind of my hope that they would end their session today. Maybe they will by this evening, so.
I think we have a pretty good consensus on this board in general agreement on these items right here. I would say, if there's one thing in here that I really support it, but I'm pretty shaky with it, and that's the bookkeepers. We're going to have we better be ready to sell that, and I absolutely understand why we need them, and I understand the additional duties and time and 200-day people and so forth, but that's 7 people, and we're going to have to be ready to sell that.
I debated saying this at the time. Sorry, Joyce. One of the things Mr. Odom and my staff working with on these, there are also changes to our internal controls, separation of duties that can improve the security of funds coming in and going out at the high schools. We will, with having that other position, in addition to being able to handle booster funds, we will be able to have a separate person work with receiving from receiving.
Let me interpret what he's trying to say. Basically, what he is saying is, we're required our internal accounting, 2 people count the money, and both of them sign up on this is the receipts on this day at this time. If you've got 2 bookkeepers and people there, that they can count and sign off on it and do it. And now we've had to rely on sometimes a teacher or somebody else to try to get the other. So if you do this, it could enhance that piece. It's just that way.
Good accounting standards.
Well, it is the required accounting standards. It's just that you got 2 people who are a little more neutral in it than somebody else is involved in.
Thank you for the interpretations.
Yeah, my finance speak doesn't work so well sometimes, so thanks. Okay.
I want to compliment my fellow board members because I feel united about this budget and the things that we put forward. It is so challenging for us to have sincere conversation and discussion within the Sunshine Law, fully disclosed in front of everyone, including our friends with the media, and debate the merits of these individual items, and yet continue to present both to our county commission, our funding body, as well as to our community at large, that we are absolutely united as a board and bring things such as this budget and improvements in education as a united board. And we do so because that's the best way for our community to join us in a commitment to excellence in education. So I'm humbled to be a part of the board that works that well together. We go to conferences and hear stories about a lot of other boards that don't agree on hardly anything. And this board is just absolutely committed. It's all about the kids.
You have been absolutely transparent. Literally, our two press people tonight received the same copy of this. Actually, our press has gotten a copy of it before our commissioners have gotten it because we didn't have it approved. But you have been absolutely transparent. If anybody listened to us on TV or something like that, and heard you in your discussion.
And that's, I was going to say the same thing, and I believe today, in today's environment, that transparency is an expectation from all of our citizens. They don't want anything other than to know exactly what is occurring in behind the scenes, and we've
Builds
made
trust.
It does, and we go to the commission, and I like the trust that we don't always agree with our funding body, but I think over the years that they've gotten that sense of trust from us, and also from you and our previous director, Mr. Gill. So, I think we have a good track record of transparency with our constituents and our funding body. Okay, we've looked at a lot of numbers. We've talked about a lot of numbers. We'll be back to make a decision here in 2 weeks. Is that correct, Ms.? And
we'll be back on May the 11th.
And we have to do it then because the joint session is the next one after that or not?
It's on the 24th.
okay.
Next budget meeting is May 11th. Call Governor Haslam, tell him we're expecting we need our figures.
Okay. All right. We'll be back together for our regular board meeting tomorrow evening. Everyone be safe, and make sure we're okay with Ms. Michaels before we adjourn. Are we good, Ms. Michaels?
Yeah, we're good.
Yes. We're good. We always check with the boss. Okay. All right. Everybody have a good evening. We stand adjourned.